People get involved in exercise for a number of reasons. These include improving their health and physical condition, trying to achieve a sporting goal or ambition, relieving tension or stress in daily life, losing weight, to gain a sense of achievement, or even for rehab from a medical condition or injury. When an athlete wants to increase and improve their performance, they look to the 6 principles of training. The principles of training are progressive overload, specificity, reversibility, variety, training thresholds, and warm-up and cool-down. In this video, I will briefly explain all of the principles of training before linking them to the sport I do, cycling. A good way of remembering these principles is an acronym that goes W Sport CV. These principles need to be adhered to when designing training programs to help achieve optimum training outcomes for the athlete. The first principle that will be discussed is the progressive overload principle. This implies that gains in a fitness component, known as adaptations, occur only when the training load, for example weight, intensity, distance or duration, is greater than the past and is progressively increased as improvements in fitness occur. So basically, you're adding more strain to each session in order to improve. It is important to remember and know that not all adaptations will take place at the same rate. Strength development needs lesser loads, but the adaptations are more insignificant. Flexibility programs are made the fastest, where progressive increase in loads produce small adaptations. For endurance, the loads need to be smaller and the adaptations must take place slowly. Endurance gains are made over a long period of time. The next principle of training that will be discussed is reversibility. The effective training programs are reversible. In the same way that the body responds to training by improving the level of fitness, a lack of training will cause the opposite to occur. This is also known as the detraining effect. An athlete must train enough so that their body is constantly improving in strength, but they must not train too much or their body will be overstressed. The principle of reversibility applies to all training programs, whether it be aerobic, strength, and flexibility. For example, with aerobic training, gains in aerobic fitness are gradually lost if training stops because the ability of working muscles to use the oxygen being delivered in the blood is reduced when this training is halted. An athlete trying to maintain cardiorespiratory endurance will avoid reversibility by training regularly at 70% maximum heart rate at least 3 times a week. Reversibility is very present in the sport of cycling. Most high-level cyclists will train at least 6, maybe even 7 days a week, and any days missed out can cause a deficit in performance. When training for sprinting, you're only going to reach your max peak sprint for approximately 2 or 3 weeks, and when training isn't maintained, you will lose this sprint extremely quickly and it will be hard to regain. Repetitive training sessions without creativity are commonly boring and unproductive. Coaches need to ensure athletes are challenged by the activities they are given. Variety ensures an athlete's mental well-being is maintained, therefore maximising motivation in physical training. In cycling, it is good to include other sports in your training. For aerobic fitness, I also swim and do a lot of walking, which is suggested by my coach. For strength training, although it is mostly done on the bike, there are small amounts that can be done off the bike, such as the use of elastic bands or even a small amount of weights in the gym. Warm-ups and cool-downs are essential in all sports. An effective warm-up should be sustained for at least 10 minutes and it should get the athlete's body and mind prepared for the task ahead of them. A cool-down is the period following the training session or race, and it is the opposite of a warm-up. The purpose is to minimize muscle stiffness and soreness resulting from strenuous activities. A lack of warm-up or cool-down can contribute to injuries. The purpose of a warm-up is to reduce the risk of injury, increase joint mobility and flexibility, increase the body temperature, mentally prepare the athlete for training, stimulate the cardiorespiratory system, and use aerobic activity to raise the body temperature. Before a cycling race, I will aim to do a minimum of 20 minutes of warming up. I am told to do this within at least the last hour before the race. In this warm-up, I have to do at least 3 sets of high cadence sprints and at least 2 1-minute at 70% threshold efforts. This is to make sure my body is warm and my muscles are stimulated. My coach always says you should be sweating on the start line, meaning you should be already at race performance at the start through warming up. My cool downs consist of 20 minutes of very easily pedaling on flat sections of road with a few high cadence efforts to get the lactic acid flowing from the legs. Training thresholds refer to a specific point that, when passed, take a person to a new level. A threshold is the level of activity an individual can sustain for a certain period of time. When athletes train, they expect improvements to occur. But for improvements to occur, athletes need to work at a level of intensity that causes their bodies to respond to the training. These improvements are called adaptations or fitness gains. A cyclist's threshold will be calculated in wattage or heart rate. My threshold, done through power, aka wattage, is 320 watts for 20 minutes. This means that I can sustain 320 watts for 20 minutes but no longer. To get this threshold up, it takes a lot of time and a lot of hours training. My coach coaches me through FTP, which is functional threshold power, and we aim to improve this over a long period of time. It does not happen overnight. My threshold power is approximately 80% of my maximum heart rate. So if my heart is beating at approximately 162 beats per minute while I'm riding, I will be sitting on a pace that I can sustain for roughly 20 minutes. The specificity principle implies that the effects of a training program are specifically related to the way in which the program is conducted. Examples of training drills or movements that can be used in training to mimic game situations include vertical jumping, which is great for netball or basketball, agility training such as dribbling, which is great for soccer or hockey, and sprint training in cycling. When applying specificity to muscle groups, the muscle groups required for a performance should be utilized and developed. The body will recruit the type of muscle fiber that is best suited, whether it be slow twitch or fast twitch. A middle distance runner, so an endurance runner, will use approximately 70% slow twitch muscle and only 30% fast twitch, where an elite sprinter, like Usain Bolt, will use approximately 80% fast twitch and only 20% slow twitch. In cycling, it depends on the type of cyclist as to which muscle fibers they use most. In a long distance race like the Tour de France, the riders will use slow twitch muscle groups much more than fast twitch, whereas in a track race, which is only a couple hundred meters long, they will use fast twitch muscles much more.